Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Never Broke Nation podcast. We are continuing our session on financial aid with Miss Ashley Davis.
Hey.
Thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Can you give us some resources of where we can go to get like scholarships?
Sure. So there's definitely fastweb.com, which I think most people are familiar with. There's also GA College 411 that students can go to for some, scholarships.com, and then studentaid.edu or .gov. So those are some that, students can go out and see if they qualify, what they qualify for, work through whatever those requirements are and get those submitted.
So go there in addition to whatever financial aid.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing that families need to understand. You need to be going everywhere because you do not want to pay for this, and you don't want to spend your full adult life paying for this. Right. If you do the work up front, you could be in a completely different position on the back end. And there's some people who are very smart and have figured it out who have gotten very little to no student loans just because they've done all this heavy lifting, all the work up front. But it's worth it though. And one thing that I have to say, and I tell parents all the time, please don't call me and your children aren't doing any of this work.
Yeah.
You see parents all the time doing all the work.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's why
I mean, it is frustrating. It's just like, you're calling me, but where is your child at? This is their education. But if this is important, why aren't they doing the research, making the calls, going to the financial aid office, and all the pressures on the parent? I'm like, listen, it's not going to have your child's name and your name on this degree. It doesn't work that way.
It sets the wrong expectation, I
think so too. It's like, get off your butt and let's make something happen. Definitely make it happen.
Goes back to being responsible.
Yeah, for sure.
So I've always heard that, one way to save on going to school, and this is not really a question, but is to go to like the technical schools or the 2-year schools, you know what I mean? Instead of going to the big universities and maybe go take your graduate at a larger school. But because the smaller schools or the technical schools or whatever are charging so much less, that it's better to go there to get your degree. And then
do 2 years and then transfer.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And that's definitely a possibility that a lot of students do take advantage of, because typically tuition is going to be less.
Right.
But sometimes people want to go to the big schools and they want to have that big school experience.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And then you need to make sure also that if you do that you're really being efficient in your studies, because you want all of those classes to transfer. You don't want to be wasting a year and then have to redo it and pay for it, 2 times over when you do transfer.
Do you all see more students transferring in to Georgia State?
Yes and no, because now Georgia State, we include Georgia Perimeter.
Okay.
So those are our students also. But in the past, definitely, there's, that definitely does happen where students are going to community colleges, getting associate's degrees first.
Right.
And then moving into their bachelor's degree.
Okay. That's definitely a great idea.
Yeah.
Right.
Going back to when y'all were saying that that you should start early with filling out your financial aid, I guess that would be helpful, because what happens if you don't get enough?
Right.
Sure.
Right.
So I guess that's when you would like go and pick up the resources that you were suggesting. Because I just thought about that. Like, what happens if the parent finds out, like, we don't have enough money?
Or even the adult learner. I've literally had students that have came to orientation and realized, because they hadn't reached out or they hadn't responded, that they don't have enough to cover their term. And then you must go into panic mode going into your program, which is no way to start. It's just, it's
How
all
long
frazzled.
does it normally take to find out how much you're going to get?
Well, so if you completed the FAFSA today, within 7 to 10 business days, it should be received by your school and you should be packaged.
Wow.
And what do you mean by
faster than I thought.
packaged?
Where the university will actually, your financial aid office will go in and actually award you for the semester. So you'll be able to see on whatever your student portal is, let's say 2 weeks at the absolute latest, but you should be able to see what's available to you.
I was thinking months.
Me too.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
no.
So no excuses, people.
Right.
No excuses.
And then it takes a lot of pressure off when you're getting started. You can just focus on starting school or getting prepared for your program or working out your work schedule or whatever the case may be.
Right. And instead of being desperate and doing God knows what to get whatever money you need.
Yeah.
So when we talk about starting early, for those young people or parents whose children are in high school, at what grade should you really start focusing on financial aid in high school?
Well, now that it's opened earlier, I suppose you could be doing that, maybe junior year, at least having those conversations,
Okay.
But the FAFSA is only going to be relative that October before they go into school.
Okay.
So to you couldn't really do it. I mean, I guess you could, but there would be no benefit in doing one earlier because it wouldn't count.
Right.
Yeah. So that October beforehand.
Yeah, so make sure you're doing that FAFSA in October. And one thing that I really appreciated when our youngest son, Cameron, was in high school, in the 9th grade, they started talking to us about college and about the financial aid process. Like, we literally had meetings beginning 9th grade.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
And I mean, it changed everything for me as far as our experience, because we had a different experience with our older son, but I knew exactly what to do, where to apply for scholarships, you know, and we had a calendar, what needed to be done by what grade,
great.
what month. Like, they laid everything out for us. So I encourage people, because it takes away a lot of the intimidation and the fear
Right.
too. Like, go ahead and familiarize yourself with everything.
Absolutely.
Know the dates. Go to FastWeb. The other good thing too is when you start in 9th grade, if you identify certain scholarships, then you know what your child's GPA needs to be,
Yep.
or what extracurricular activities they need to be. Like, you could be moving towards, you know, the Gates Millennial Scholarship or
Absolutely.
whatever those are. You know what the criteria is because you've been preparing all of high school.
So you know what you're aiming for.
You know what
Yeah.
you're aiming for to go ahead and go after that money.
Absolutely.
So if you know what you're aiming for, and like you kind of have an idea of how much school is going to cost, and your financial, you get awarded more money than what your school is going to cost. I know you were saying earlier that don't get all the money.
Right.
How do you go about doing that? Do you just, because maybe a student might feel like I got this, I have to take it.
Yeah, I mean, possibly. I think we have.
to me. Oh my God.
I think we have those conversations, and it's very appealing when you see it out there. But they have to accept what they want. So just because we award you $10,000 doesn't mean that you'll get $10,000. You have to actually accept the full $10,000, or accept $5,000 or $3,000, whatever the case may be. So, really, it would be kind of in the best interest of the financial aid office at the schools to be having those real candid conversations. And then the reality is that sometimes students do need that. They need laptops for school. They
Right.
need books. You maybe, need some living expenses. So that's reality too. But
Right.
just being responsible about it.
Right.
So if they get awarded more, they can just go back to their financial office and say, I only want X amount of dollars, as opposed
They have to. They have
Exactly.
to accept whatever it is that they want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And I think a lot of times parents don't understand that their children are getting money back that they don't actually need. And
They may
what
not
are
even
your
know.
children? Exactly. They may not know. And then you don't know what your kids are doing with that
Exactly.
money, because you hear kids talking about it at certain schools. You can tell when people have gotten their refund checks, because here come in the new TVs and the new PlayStation gaming
Right.
systems.
Cars.
Oh my God, not the car. But it's funny that you say that. I actually do know someone who used that money for a down payment on a car. Yeah. So here we go. Look.
Did they pay their
Dominique's
tuition?
Yeah.
I said I bought 2 cars.
You did
Are you
not buy
serious,
2 cars.
Dominique?
Well, my first car was like $1,000, and then
Yeah.
my second car was like $3,500.
Right.
But I
From
mean,
your
like some
refund money?
situations, you may need
need
that.
it.
Yeah, you need it right to get around.
I mean,
Like,
that makes sense. Yeah.
So what else have you done with your refund money? Yeah. I know.
Jiminy, jump on the mic.
I know, right? I'm like, okay, student, over there affirming what we're talking about.
hey, that's real life, though.
Yeah.
I want to get your takeaway on this
I
conversation
know.
too.
All right. So now, where were you in school?
You said where?
Yeah, where'd you go to school?
I went to school at Clayton State University.
Oh, you're at Clayton State. And so you filled out your financial aid. Your parents did it. You knew what to do. Like, how did it go?
I want to say my sister helped me.
Okay.
When it came to it, because she's a year older than me.
Okay.
And she started school before me, so when she did it, and when it was time for me to do it, I just went to her, and she pretty much did it for me.
She helped you. Okay.
Yeah. And I want to say,
yeah, that's
every
what
year-
Right.
yeah, and maybe like every year after that, she pretty much would help me, or it was like pretty much self-explanatory, because like it was already filled out for all the other years.
Right.
So that's pretty much how it was.
Right. And so, did you see people in school using their refunds irresponsibly? I'm sure.
Yes.
Buying stuff like.
Clothes.
Okay.
Shoes. Like I knew one person.
No
names.
Don't
I knew
name
one
them.
person. She would get maybe like a $6,000 refund, and I don't know what she would spend her money on.
Right.
But I just know, like, say we'll get that money like the end of January.
Right.
By March, all of it will be gone. I don't
Right.
know where her money went. But she would say, like, because she didn't have a job and stuff like that, she used it to live off of.
Okay.
And then since she didn't have a car,
Right.
she used all her money to, like, order out and stuff like that.
Okay. Okay. The good life. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Did you have any concept that you were going to have to pay all that money back? Mm-hmm. Oh, so that was good.
It's kind of like out of sight,
Like,
out of
I
mind
wouldn't
mode,
take
you
the
know?
most or like that. Like, if I knew, like, they was giving me all this money, I was like, okay, I don't really need all of it.
Right.
Like, I wouldn't do. I know. Yeah. Because then I wouldn't get that much
Pat her on the
offered
shoulder.
either.
Pat her. Yes. Go ahead.
Because I wouldn't do the Parent Plus loan because
Yeah.
I didn't want to put that burden on my parents.
Right.
Knowing that it would be them who had to pay it back versus, like, my other roommates or friends who would do the Parent Plus loan.
Right.
So it's like when I denied it, they'll give me the money, but
Right.
it wouldn't be as much as it would be when if my parents would have took the Parent Plus loan.
Okay.
So
And so you have student loans now. Okay. Gotcha. All right. Thank you for your honesty, Geminique. Yes, I know.
And you know what I don't think a lot of parents realize is that as a parent, you just can't call into the school and find out how your kid is doing, like if they're taking their aid or whatever. Like you have to have, there's FERPA agreements that are on file. And if your child chooses not to fill that out,
Right.
you literally, your hands are tied. You're just kind of having to trust
Right.
them
Wow.
and what they're telling you.
Never. And so, yeah,
Negative.
when our kids went to school, when I tell you that's the very first thing that I had them sign.
Sign that.
Yeah. I'm like, you don't have to, but don't ever call me for anything ever in life again.
exactly.
So it's up to you. Which
And
one are we
what type
gonna
of
do here?
agreement is that?
You want to sign it? Yeah. It's a FERPA agreement.
What does FERPA mean?
Honestly, I'm not sure what the definition of FERPA is.
But we know we need to make sure it gets
Absolutely.
signed.
And that's for financial aid, that's for registration, anything school related.
Anything
As an
school.
administrator, we cannot just give your information out to an employer, to your parent, to a spouse. I mean, it has to be, you have to highlight it and give
Wow, so that's
give
important for
permission.
parents to know. 'cause
Absolutely.
they can make sure that force their child's hand, or like you said,
Yeah.
if you don't sign it,
Yeah, just don't call me.
Strongly encourage.
Ultimatum, call it whatever you want. That's for sure. That is really good. So now when we've been talking about these awards and financial aid, can you appeal? Say you get your expected family contribution, you get your award package. If you're like, no.
Like
Can
it's
I-
not enough.
Can I appeal it? Can I?
So the only really real reason that you would appeal is if you had some type of extenuating circumstances that you could prove. And there are budget appeals, which basically means your budget is bigger and you need more aid. You could appeal those to try to get additional aid, but still there's caps for each grade level and you can't go over those caps. Now you could supplement it with like a Graduate Plus loan or a Parent Plus loan and get more in those departments.
Okay.
Or even a private loan if you chose to.
Okay.
But there is an additional process for that, and students don't realize as well that you have to maintain certain grades to keep it.
Right.
So you have to maintain certain grades, otherwise your financial aid won't be eligible to you anyways.
Yeah. So that's for your federally backed aid.
Correct. yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
And scholarships as well.
Scholarships
If you want
too,
to keep
obviously,
them,
right.
yeah, you want to keep them. You gotta do your part.
Right. Absolutely.
So based on your experience, what are some common mistakes that people make when it comes down to their student aid?
I would say
financial aid,
over borrowing
excuse me.
is probably the biggest concern. And I would also say waiting until the last minute and not being proactive. And sometimes, that's no fault of their own. They just don't know, especially if they're younger. But a lot of times there's quite a bit of research or outreach that's going on from the different departments. You may get inundated with emails from your school, but they're important and they're getting sent out for a reason. So not just deleting and, getting tired of them. Read all the way through so that you don't miss deadline dates, things of that nature, because it's there. You just need to take advantage of it.
Anything frustrate you in the process? You're like, if I have to deal with this one more time, like what is?
Should I say?
Yes. Like what are you?
I think just constantly having to, repeat the same thing. And mostly it's because people aren't reading the communications that are going out. And I get it. It can be overwhelming. You're getting stuff from every department in the university, but we're sending them for a reason.
Right.
And then they'll come back upset. And it's like, but we tried on this day and this
Right.
day and and this day.
Right. Right. You all have to take it seriously because, reading email or paying student loans for the next 30 or 40 years,
Yes.
it's your choice.
Yes.
Which one are you going to do?
Now, speaking of paying back student loans, can you actually pay back during school?
Absolutely. Yep, you can. There's no prepayment penalty for that as well. So, we encourage students, if you're in a position to do it, there's no reason that you can't. Now, your student loans can be deferred. So if you're in school and you're at least in part-time status, you don't have to pay on them while you're in school. But you certainly can.
And now the Parent Plus loans, those parents have to begin paying immediately.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And what happens to your financial aid if you're like, I'm going to sit out this quarter?
So it just wouldn't disperse. If you're not enrolled, if a student isn't enrolled, then your financial aid can't go out. You have to actually be enrolled in at least part-time credit hours to receive financial aid. So if you're not enrolled, then you just won't get it. Now, it's not like you can then get double up the next semester because there's still semester caps. So you can't just get, double the amount the following term.
And what about if a student did enroll full-time, then they end up dropping a couple of classes. Now they're part-time. She rolled her eyes, Chris. What does that mean?
Because it gets messy. Yeah, it can get messy, especially if you've already received your financial aid and then you end up withdrawing. It depends on how the institution may work, but you still have to maintain those credit hour requirements. So if you've already gotten your refund, and this happens a lot, the students will get their refund and then they withdraw from classes, because at that point you can't even really drop. You're withdrawing for classes.
Right.
You haven't met the academic requirements, so now money has to be sent back. So we send the financial aid back, whatever that prorated amount is, and that's determined based on, whenever they actually drop from or withdraw from the class. And then you owe money to the school. So that gets messy.
Right. Does that
Quick.
happen? Does that happen fairly often?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
And they think they're trying to be slick too.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no slick with that though.
Yeah.
Can the financial aid amount that you receive affect how many classes you can take a semester?
No, you can take as many courses as you choose to. It's just if you can afford it or not.
That's what it's all about.
But you have to be in at least part-time hours to receive any of it.
And what's part-time hours like?
So for undergrad, that's going to be 6. For grad, it's 4.5.
Is that based on school, or that's like
Yeah,
general?
those are yeah.
Okay, so
those
you
are
would have to
they're
know.
general. Yeah,
okay,
they're
general. Gotcha.
Whatever the part-time hours is, unless you're at like a quarter-based school, that might be a little bit different, where they run every 8 weeks or so.
Okay.
Understood.
So let's talk about after school. Now when you have your graduating seniors, is there anything that they need to be doing, whether they're at the graduate or undergraduate level, when they're getting ready to leave school and enter into the real world?
You can't just forget about us right before you leave. Yeah, still come talk to us. We're still your friends.
Right.
Because there's exit counseling that needs to go on for your loans. That needs to take place. We also want to start having conversations about repayment, because if you're not going immediately into a graduate program or a second degree, you're going to start owing your money within 6 months. You get a 6-month grace period one time. But after that, it's going to start rolling in. So you want to start looking at what the options are now, because they're constantly changing. I mean, financial aid is always, evolving. And even with different administrations, that can change. But just making sure that you have those options, first and foremost, so that you know what your options are and what you may need to be looking at financially when it comes to repayment.
Is this exit process required to graduate?
I guess that might depend on the school, but yeah, I mean, it has to get done. So you may still be able to walk and get your diploma, but it has to get done eventually. And it's online. I mean, everything's very straightforward and online.
Are there any type of programs that can help you pay back student loans? It's all on you. I was just curious.
No.
Yeah.
You can consolidate your loans, which helps.
Consolidate and refinance. Yeah, I've seen people do that, but it's, there's no scholarship for that.
Right. You have to be getting those along the way.
Exactly.
So it's a lesser amount that you're taking out.
That's why it's so painful.
Well, actually, there is this game show that's on now that will help you.
Right.
If you get on a game show, that will help you pay your student loans.
I know. I've seen it a couple of times.
So there's that.
Right.
You can try to get on that.
But for that, people, we need to stay away from the loans altogether.
It's all on you.
Right. And so what happens, because I know this has to be happening a lot, you have all these young people graduating, 6-month period of time is over, still no job, can't pay.
I mean, so you can reach out to your lender. There are forbearances that are out there that you could, possibly qualify for, but that's something that you have to qualify for, and that's at the discretion of your lender.
Right.
So I can't just say, just because you're in that situation, you're automatically going to receive that.
Right.
It is a qualification process. They're going to ask about your expenses, what kind of bills
Oh,
you
now
have.
they want to know about that.
Yes, they do. They want to know all that.
Now it's important, right?
Right.
Right. But one thing, Ashley, based on what you're saying, the key word is communicate. Please do not run and hide from your lender.
Yeah.
You have to, if you don't have a job, if you're underemployed, you have to talk to them instead of just kind of ducking and diving. Please let them know, because obviously it has a very significant impact on your credit.
And when you were talking about like applying for forbearance and those different things, aren't there different types of loans that, like, there's certain types of loans that you should get and there's certain types of loans that you shouldn't?
Well, there's different repayment options when you're done. So, you can have a standard plan where it's just going to take, whatever the total amount is you borrowed over 10 years, and it's going to be your highest dollar amount, but you're going to get done, the quickest. But there's other ones that are income-based, and there's hardship programs that are out there.
Right.
So that you may, and this may be, really ideal, but making $5 payments, but that's what you can make, and that's what they agreed that you can make. So for this year, you're only obligated to make a $5 payment. So then you avoid default, which is exactly what Janai's saying. You don't want to get in that position, because that does affect your credit. You could have things garnished, things like that. So
I think, Chris, what you're talking about is really the difference between the private loans, from
like the
banks
federal.
versus the federally backed. Because when Ashley's talking about having those income-based repayment plans, you're not eligible for that with those
yeah,
private
that's all your
loans.
federal aid.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
They want their money.
Right.
Yeah.
Whether you're working or
Doesn't
not.
matter.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, even when you're in school, for a
Yeah.
private loan, I mean, that's something that you may be paying while you're in school.
Yeah, they don't play.
Yeah.
And so you really want to try to stay away from
the
those. That's
private
like a
loans.
definitely last resort.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
I just had a couple more questions for you. So let's talk about myths. Do people ask you questions and you're like, where in the world did they get that from? Any common financial aid myths?
I think the biggest, and we kind of touched on it, is that all financial aid is free. Most people, when they come to me, they assume that if I qualify for financial aid, I don't have to pay anything back. And
Right.
they don't realize that loans are financial aid. That would be the biggest misconception that I think that I've seen. Also, a lot of students don't realize that Graduate Plus loans and private loans and Parent Plus loans, those are all credit-based. So you have to meet the credit requirements for those loans to be eligible anyways. It's not just a give me like, your federal aid. As long as you meet the citizenship requirements, you don't have a loan that's in default, typically as long as you haven't met those aggregate levels, you can borrow.
I can see how someone would think that.
Yeah,
I should
automatically. I should
get
get
that.
it. Right.
Well, I need $10,000 more. Okay, I'll just do this.
Yeah.
Right.
But there's no guarantee that you'll get approved for it. There's cosigner options and things like that, but I mean, that's another process, and you have to find someone who's willing to support you in that,
right.
and that's an obligation on their part too.
Right. Not doing that. Yeah. Please don't do that.
You got a lot of boxes you're checking.
I know. No.
I have one more question. Have you ever seen somebody do it right with student loans and financial aid?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah,
what did that look like?
responsible.
Right.
They were responsible. They got everything done early, proactive, contacting us, not just waiting until the last minute,
Right.
had everything in order. And some students are even making those payments while they're in school just so that it's less of a burden when they get out. If you're able to do that, that's a great thing to be doing, but it's not always reality.
It's kind of like a poster child, you mean, like
Sure.
a good example for the whole
so that
financial aid
everybody can
process.
know, right.
Say, I should be aspiring to this.
Exactly.
Let me follow the example of
Exactly.
name that student.
So that you're
Right.
not paying 50 years
Right.
down the road.
I've said that to students too. Go talk to your classmates. Like,
Right.
this is great. What you're doing is great. Why don't you go tell somebody?
Makes it more believable too, I'm
yeah,
sure.
to know that someone else can do it.
Right. And this is bad because I hear that sometimes people are getting student loans that wind up owing back more than their income would ever bring them because
Sure.
whatever they went into school for is not even a high earning
Right.
job. You know what I mean? So I mean, like, you have to
And
think about
interest is
everything.
accruing and,
Right.
all of that. So, yeah, it can add up very quickly.
Any last words, Ashley? Any last bit of advice? Anything we didn't cover that you think our listening audience really needs to know?
I think just don't hesitate to ask questions. You know, you don't have to walk through that process by yourself. And it's important to be your own advocate. You know, speak up. If you have questions, take responsibility of your education, your future financial status, and ask the right questions, or ask questions so that you can get answers. People are getting paid for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, we're here to help. And so taking advantage of that and not feeling like you can't. Use your voice.
Voice.
Thank you, Ashley Davis.
Thank you.
Yeah, this has
Thank you
been
so much.
very, very helpful.
Yes, it has.
Yeah, I've learned a lot. We really appreciate you being here and sharing this
Thank
financial
you.
aid knowledge
Absolutely.
with the Never Broke Nation.
Yeah.
Chris, can you tell people where to follow us?
Yes, they can continue to follow us at Never Broke Nation. We are on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and also we are now on iTunes. So you can go on there and download the podcast and listen. And we would love to hear any of your feedback and let us know if you want us to cover anything going forward.
Yep, definitely. Please let us know. So thank you so much for tuning into the Never Broke Nation. Ashley, one more thing. If people want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
That would be adavis249@gsu.edu.
At gsu.edu. Okay. All right, Georgia State, we see you growing by leaps and bounds, buying our whole downtown.
Absolutely. Pretty much, right?
Great school over
All
there.
right.
But again, Ashley, thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Absolutely.
And thank you for
Thank you.
listening to the Never Broke Nation.
So long.